Hey y'all, it's Desiree and I'm back with another video. And for this video, I'm going to be talking about waiting on a prophecy and why possibly a prophecy that you're waiting on has not came to pass. Or I should say has not came to pass yet. When it comes to prophecy, when it comes to receiving a word from God, I feel that oftentimes we make the mistake of taking God's word at face value. We see it as up or down, black or white, not realizing that God is not a one-sided God. And this leads to a lot of disappointment, especially as it relates to timing. Simply because you cannot truly perceive His timing, not because of your lack of faith or your lack of understanding, but your lack of infinite wisdom. God may say, "You're about to meet your husband soon," or "prepare for your dream job," and 3 years passes by, 4 years passes by, and there is no man in sight. Or you're still working that job that you hate. And it's like, well, God, I thought you said soon. But God needs you to know that He does not work off natural timing. When God speaks a word to you, it's always going to come with a season of preparation. And God doesn't just speak to the finality of a thing. Now, don't get me wrong, He can. Sometimes God speaks a word and immediately, minutes later, it happens. Or immediately when He speaks it, it happens. Or a day later, it happens. But more oftentimes than not, God does not speak to the finality of a thing. When we hear a word, when we receive a word, we often receive it as the finished product. We receive it in completion. I feel like a lot of us have the wrong idea of when God speaks a word, it comes to pass. That does not mean immediately. It may manifest in the spirit immediately, but it does not always physically manifest immediately. Isaiah 55:11 says, "So shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it." It says that God sends His word out and it does not return to Him void. That sounds to me that when God speaks a word, that word takes motion. That word takes an action. That word goes out on assignment. That word goes out with instruction. It goes forth with a task to carry out. If you aren't careful, you may hear right now and assume that God literally means right now. And you may begin to start forming time frames in your mind. Time frames that will quickly turn into disappointment, upset, heartbreak, completely unaware of the process of manifestation. And speaking of manifestation, a lot of us often believe that once God speaks a word, it's up to us to pull that word down or to pull that word into fruition. It's not up to us to manifest the word of God. It's not up to us. It didn't say when God speaks a word, He sends it out, and then if you don't manifest it, if you don't bring it to pass, then it could possibly turn back void. No. There's a designated manifestation process connected to each word that God calls forth. And upon its completion, that word will then manifest in the physical. Think of it this way. If you have to be at work at 3 o'clock or you have a doctor's appointment or something at 3 o'clock, you don't wait till 3 o'clock to start getting ready. Some of us got a whole shower routine, a whole hair care routine. Some of us for a 3 o'clock appointment, we need to be moving around at 12. Because we know in order to achieve our designated goal, in order to achieve the thing that we have set out for us to complete, we must begin to prepare ahead of time. You're not going to wait to 2:59 to start preparing. A woman doesn't carry a baby for 9 months and then get to the day of her due date and begin setting up the crib, begin packing a hospital bag. An expectant mother begins to prepare immediately. She doesn't wait to prepare. She's going to already carry a tone of, I'm about to have a baby. I'm getting ready to birth something. It's not when she reaches the due date that she says, I'm getting ready to birth. It's her expectation that causes her to assume the position to receive. God gives us 9 months to prepare for new life. Clearly, God understands the timing of a thing. Clearly, God understands the preparation of a thing. Because imagine only having 3 months to prepare for a new life. Imagine only having 3 weeks to prepare for a new life. God is a God of preparation. Yes, God is a God of manifestation, but first He is a God of preparation. God speaks the word, speaking to your expectancy, not to place emphasis on His timing, but to place emphasis on the position required. And while we're here, let me just say this. That positioning is not a matter of right and wrong. That positioning is not simply a matter of, well, drop this in or drop that, do this. You're not doing that yet. You haven't started reading your word enough. You haven't. No. It's not always about right or wrong. Oftentimes when things aren't happening how we thought they were, when we thought they were, when we were expecting them to, we make the mistake of believing that, oh, well, what I do wrong? Or, oh, God must be mad at me. Or, oh, there must be something that I'm not hearing right. There must be something that I need to fix. But more oftentimes than not, it's not what you need to fix. It's what God needs to fix in you. Not the flaws that He sees in you, but that heartbreak, but that pain, but that trauma. The one that only He can heal. The one that only He can take off of you. The one that only He can release you from. Because this is a process. I don't want you to just have the blessing. I don't want you to just have these great things. I want to make sure that you understand why you're receiving these great things. I want you to understand why my heart is moved to perform these great things. Why you're worthy of these great things. What deemed you qualified for these great things. God is so caring. God is so loving. As much as He wants to bring you the great thing, He won't until you're full enough to receive it. Because to receive a great thing in brokenness brings joy. It brings a temporary happiness. But to receive a great thing when your heart is full brings peace. God doesn't just want to see you with it. He wants you to be able to enjoy it and enjoy it in its fullness. But first you have to be willing to go through the manifestation process. First, you have to be willing to allow Him to maneuver in your life, in your spirit, in your heart, in ways that may feel uncomfortable, trusting the process. Trusting the author of the process. Trusting the one who sent that word out. And spoiler alert, oftentimes that process looks the complete opposite of what it is that God has promised you. But you must be willing to trust the process. You must be willing to endure the process. When you receive a word from God, don't automatically think when, automatically think what. What do I need to do? How do I need to prepare? What position do I need to assume? Because assuming God's timing will only lead to disappointment. And you don't want to stunt the process desperately clinging on to what it is that God spoke. You don't want to be waking up every day desperately looking to what it is that God has spoken to you, so much so that you are forfeiting or stunting the process. A lot of people let their discouragement, a lot of people let their disappointment, a lot of people let their upset towards God and His timing distract them. And that's something that the enemy will use. Look at the timing, so that you're not focusing on the process. Look at the timing, look at what you don't have, so you can't receive and perceive the peace that you already have in this moment, the comfort that God is affording you in this moment. Because sometimes it's not even so much that we're really uncomfortable. Sometimes it's not even so much that we're really in a tight space. It's the space that we've allowed in our minds, or I should say the lack thereof. Don't get so hung up on the blessing that you begin to discredit what it is that you've already been blessed with. And let me tell you something, it's hard. It's hard. It's definitely an internal battle. It definitely is an internal war to quiet your mind, to remind your mind once more. This is a process. And what God spoke shall come to pass, but I must endure the process. It's hard, but we have to constantly train up our minds to focus on the process and not on the timing. Because if you're looking at the process, then you can clearly see the progress. But if you're looking at the timing, it looks like nothing is happening. It looks like God is just sitting back like, oh, you need something? Oh, are you looking for me? You waiting on me? I hear people say oftentimes, I wish that God wouldn't just tell you, things in advance. And I've caught myself saying the same things. God, I really don't want you to tell me nothing else in advance. Tell me when you about to do it now. But imagine if God just got you out of bed one day and started you on a process and you don't know what's going on. You think it's all type of warfare, witchcraft, all type of sorcery coming against you, not understanding, not being able to perceive that you are in the middle of a process. And in a process that's going to birth a miracle, a process that's going to birth one of your biggest blessings. But all you can see is the turmoil. All you can see is what you're going through in that moment. God, thank you for telling me what you're doing ahead of time so that I can be prepared. So that I could be in the know, so that I could work side by side, hand in hand with you, so I could be present to the process. Because a lot of people hear your husband is coming and they hear, let me prepare in the physical. Let me get this body right. Let me figure out what kind of dress I want to wear. Let me figure out the shoes, the hairstyle. Listen, some of y'all ain't met that man. Some of y'all don't know that man, but you know how you want your hair. You know you got the venue picked out. You got the shoes picked out. You know where you want him to propose to you at. And that's great. And that's wonderful. But listen, don't sleep on the process. Because before I send you this man, let me make sure that your heart is able to hold him. Let me first reveal you to you. Let me show you how to first fall in love with you before you go falling in love with this man. Let me show you your true worth. Let me show you your true beauty. Let me wash away every insecurity. Let me first make you whole before I make you one. And at that point, when God said you'll be meeting your husband soon, you can further understand. Yeah, that's cool if I got the dress picked out, but let me make sure I got my heart picked out. That's cool to go get in that kitchen and start practicing, trying to put some things together or two. But let me make sure I have something to feed that man spiritually. This is a process. God doesn't just bring you something good overnight. Because yeah, Amazon may send you something in 2-3 days, but it's 2-3 days quality. Sometimes it's better to go through that process. And God always makes you wait for the greatest blessings. And that makes me think about my own pregnancy. Knowing that I'm carrying a blessing that I cannot touch, that I cannot see, stewarding over that blessing, protecting that blessing, praying over that blessing, speaking to that blessing for 9 months. And I just remember the first time that I laid eyes on him and I just bursted into tears. I was so overwhelmed with joy. I was so overwhelmed with relief to finally see the result of that process. To go from first finding out that I'm pregnant with no physical indication to then seeing the manifestation of new life. It's something about watching the manifestation of a process that's so much more satisfying than to just receive it at the snap of a finger. The victory is so much sweeter when you know what you had to sacrifice. What woman says, oh, I don't want this baby no more. This process is taking too long. No, I don't want this baby no more. I don't want this blessing no more. When it gets hard, when it gets difficult, she reminds herself of that expectation. She reminds herself of that finish line. She reminds herself of that goal. What if that's why God gives us the expectancy well in advance, to keep us motivated, to keep us encouraged in those hard-pressed moments, to give us something to look forward to? Because great things truly do come to those who wait. And when you know what you had to put into a thing in order to receive it, it makes you value that thing a little different. A mother values that baby a little different. I put my heart into this. I put my life on the line for this. I had a lot of sleepless nights for this. What if I told you that a part of the process is coming to understand the value of what it is that God is bringing you? Because when you had to suffer without it, when you had to go without it, how much better is it when you receive it? How much sweeter is that victory? How much sweeter is that moment when you behold what it was that God had been promising you all along? What it was that God was bringing to manifestation all along? I don't think it's no coincidence that you have to carry a baby for 9 months and then go through pain to birth it. I want you to cherish this. I want you to value this. I want you to hold importance for this in your mind, in your heart. Because yeah, I could have did it at a snap of a finger, but would you have appreciated the same? One thing about it, you will never be disappointed waiting on God. A God-given expectancy will never, ever fall short, no matter how impossible or outlandish it may sound. And ask me how I know. The Bible does not say 11 times, hope in God and you will not be put to shame. Trust in God and you will not be put to shame. Those who hope in the Lord will not be put to shame. Those who have faith in God will not be put to shame. Were those just filler scriptures? Did God just run out of ideas? Or was he just that intentional in making sure that we know that our expectancy will not turn back void? A God-given expectancy will not turn back void. Luke 1:37, for no word from God will ever fail.